Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be looking at Warhammer 40K versus, and I know I'm going to get some flack for this, Ghost in the Shell. Now, first off, you're going to probably wonder, Warhammer 40K is a galaxy-wide, massive battlesphere where there's planets thrown away on a heartbeat, and you're comparing it to Ghost in the Shell, which is single planet, usually single country, sometimes single city. How could these possibly compare? The answer is, in a straight-up fight, yeah, no, 40K wins. But this is actually an interesting matchup because this is not symmetrical warfare between these two. These are not flat-out enemy forces. But they are very much opposed. Again, Ghost in the Shell in a flat-out war with 40K, any single faction in 40K loses. But the real advantage of Ghost in the Shell here isn't so much that it's a military conflict, but that in terms of infiltration and espionage, Ghost in the Shell is actually very well suited to integrate into 40K in a very, not really healthy or helpful, but non-dead way, which is pretty much the best they could hope for at this point. If any reason 40K invaded the universe of Ghost in the Shell, yeah, wipe it out. They see all the cyborg, they see all the technology, all of the Imperium wipes it out. Wow! But if you take the people from Ghost in the Shell, and I mean any of the people from Ghost in the Shell, and put them into the 40K universe, they generally look human. So if they're on a non-human planet, usual problems apply. Human, Xeno, they don't get along with 40K. Most things don't get along with 40K. Internally, externally, most things try to kill you. When you take this to an asymmetrical warfare footing, where it's a group of smaller, highly specialized, highly adept, and highly technologically savvy people, which is everyone in Ghost in the Shell, integrate them into a high technology but low understanding, which is the Imperium mostly. Technically, the other factions aren't in the same situation, but the Imperium is most of the galaxy, so the Imperium, you have an interesting setup. Now, just to clarify, against the elves, it wouldn't really matter because they look human, so they're easily spotted. So anyone from Ghost in the Shell doesn't really blend in. In a straight-up fight, they would probably lose. They would have advantage of, just technological hardware, but just less military hardware to survive a hit or to deal as much of a hit as needed to take anyone down. So against almost any Xenos faction, Ghost in the Shell has no chance. Asymmetrical. Here, though, is where you're basically fighting rebel tactics. This is where you're going against a larger superior force, so you have to do hit and run tactics, you have to do sabotage, you have to do infiltration, you have to do information warfare. These are all things that play to the strengths of Ghost in the Shell incredibly well, because Ghost in the Shell is cybernization, it is mechanization, it is post-human, post-roboticism, and I do mean post-roboticism, evolution. The soul is a proven fact in Ghost in the Shell because people have their, I'm going with avatar. I actually completely forgot the correct name for it, but, oh, they're ghost, yeah. That's why it's called Ghost in the Shell. They're ghost. It is how someone appears in a cyber mainframe, in a cyber brain, in a cyber setting. It's how they think of themselves and it's how they act. And they can move between bodies with that cyber frame, which in real life physics, there's a lot of implications there that the mind is more attached to the soul, which is what that is, and the body is just extra, and that's all things that come up in Ghost in the Shell, and it is actually a plot point in many sections. All of that is to say, infiltrating the technological base of the Imperium would be both really hard and really easy for anyone from Ghost in the Shell with a positronic brain. On the one hand, 40K technology is robust. It is advanced. It is super Dark Age, honestly. And I don't mean Dark Age of technology in 40K, which is when things were at the super height of awesomeness and godlike humanity was basically what the elves thought they were. Space elves. I know it's Eldari, I'm just going to call them space elves. I'm doing that on purpose. They have fallen from there. They are 3 apocalypses past being the greatest ever. And the Imperium has a lot of technology, and I'm specifically drawing from the Angels of Death trailer, where they showed technology being used by someone, And the display frame was just 90s, like 1990s style displays, where it's just text on a screen scrolling. It was super low-key, and while it had a lot of processing power, that's mostly because they had a lot of physical hardware to put into it, because the room was filled with a few servers. And I'm not even sure the servers, it could have been a single computer equivalent made of human brains, because that's actually kind of how they do things. Yeah. They don't do hardware so much as wetware. Yeah. I try very hard not to think about that. So this is actually one of the reasons that it would be hard and easy for anyone from Ghost in the Shell with the more advanced, with the more technologically savvy positronic brains. Sorry, why do I keep saying positronic? Cyber brain. Anyone with these kind of brains, with these kind of adaptations, with this kind of general knowledge to interact. Because one, while they cannot hack the gray matter, specifically the biological components, they can hack the interface and easily use it, because it's like hooking up a quantum computer to a 1990s interface. It's going to burn it out. Or it can just run an emulator and interact with it very easily without much worry about contamination, because any virus that could infect that could easily be screened to the side and just held off. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, you're in this little box. We're going to keep this box over here.
I just hit a lick with the box, had to put the stick in the box.
40K has a lot of technology, but the technological savvy is intentionally diminished. 40K is afraid of technology. It is afraid of advancement. It is afraid of knowledge. Specifically 40K. 30K, yeah, but not to the same extent. 40K is afraid of thought, of learning, of advancing. It does it, but there's factions who think, no, this is horrible. And these are still scars from Old Night, from just watching their society of godlike creations and technology and power crumble away, and anyone who was advanced enough died because they were at ground zero, essentially. All that's left are the ignorant masses who only survived because they were ignorant. And that's been true for multiple apocalypses in the 40K universe. A savvy operator from Ghost in the Shell dropped into anywhere that is a hive city, that is a city with any level of technological database, anything short of a feudal world, or a death world. Maybe a death world actually would work fine, but anything short of a feudal world where there is prevalent technology, they can interface with that and probably have a massive advantage because their systems are probably just more robust. Better, smarter, faster.
Bigger, better, stronger. Bigger, better, stronger.
And the fact that a lot of them have massive cyber components wouldn't actually be that much of a standout, because as much as 40K is afraid of technology, it's on the computing side. On the more physical side, yeah, they're fine with it. People have massive augmentations in 40K, like massive limb replacements. The Mechanicus are creepy. So if anything, anyone from Ghost in the Shell would blend in easier with the non-Mechanicus, more normal population, because they would look more normal generally. But when it comes to interfacing with the technology, they would have a massive advantage in technological military warfare, because they could find what they need, they can get what they need, they can sabotage other people's ability to find them, and probably just wreak havoc on any infrastructure because they can access it so much easier. Now, all of this is based on the premise that they can access it. And all of this is different for the Imperium versus the Mechanicus. Now, technically, the Mechanicus is part of the Imperium, but the is very much necessary. Technically, they're actually distinct branches of government which have a seat on the council, but are also their own distinct thing, because they had Titans, and the Emperor wanted Titans more than, having Titans thrown against him, which is valid. I mean, when one side has giant war machines of murder, you usually listen. And this is part of the reason I think Ghost in the Shell would have a pretty good time, because this is what a Titan is. It is basically a mind strapped into a giant warsuit with an AI. They're calling them machine spirits, and they treat them like they're dog minds that are at that level of sophistication. 40K is indistinct. sometimes when it comes to certain bits of lore. What exactly is the distinction between an abominable intelligence, or what they call an AI, and a machine spirit is one of those things where they make a huge distinction between them. Anyone from the Ghost in the Shell universe, though, would have a distinct advantage in this section, because this is essentially what they do for their very prosthetic bodies. They are ghosts in a shell, which is essentially what the Titan is. Without a principle, or princeps, that's it. A princeps in a Titan, it's essentially a ghost inhabiting the shell. It is the machine spirit. I mean, literally, ghost, shell, machine. Yeah, it's literally identical. I would not be surprised if Ghost in the Shell or machine spirits were somewhat connected. They do seem to have certain naming conventions. It could be a coincidence, it could not. They're both pretty old at this point. It could go either way. This would give anyone from Ghost in the Shell with a positron brain a massive advantage, because they would essentially be doing how they interact with most machinery is how they deal with the Titan. If they can infiltrate technology, they can find out, and if they need a fallback, all they need to do is find a Titan, which, is not going to be easy, and would be the biggest problem. Finding a Titan linked into a network they can access. Because if they have to do it physically, not impossible if they're good at stealth. Like, for example, the Major. Yeah, stealth suit, she can do it. Would she be able to get past all of their stuff? I don't know, but she would probably be able to infiltrate their systems, find out what is around, get the information, and then drop in, find the Titan body, hijack it, and then just do what she needs. This is why the Mechanicus are a thing, though, because they are pseudo-cyber. They replace great extents of themselves with machinery. Sometimes, like in the case of Call, they will even incorporate separate human minds into their own being. I know of one for certain. There might be more, I don't know. He's been alive a very long time. Alive might also be a stretch by this point. But minds like his in the Mechanicus would actually be a stepping stone, depending on how they interact with technology. Because they interact with it on a fundamental level for themselves, because they incorporate so much into themselves. They are very similar to what the Ghost in the Shell world would be with prosthetic bodies. Except prosthetic bodies usually look more human than anything the Mechanicus does. Mostly by choice, and the Mechanicus not really valuing human form that much. Not saying it's a bad thing on their end, it's just, the flesh is weak. They're more about information, and metal usually holds it better than flesh. That's literally their shtick. The meme of it, though, is toaster good. I know what I said. So in a flat-out conflict, what would usually happen is anyone dropped in. Now, specifically like the Major or the more combat-oriented people, it would be a much bigger advantage, but anyone who had any savvy in this world, and there's a lot of factions that did, would have one huge advantage. They can drop in. They could have almost complete information control over the vast majority of the worlds they could drop in, so long as they're in the Imperium. And as long as they don't run into the Mechanicus too fast, and as long as the Mechanicus don't cotton on to what they're doing, they could have a decided advantage in a conflict, because while they might not have the guns right away, or the armor right away, or the troops ever, to hold off a force, they could get what they need, they could find out where what they need is, and what the opposition would be, because information warfare is finding out what you need, making sure your opponents don't know where you are. And if they really want to go full-on hacker, and considering it's Ghost in the Shell, and that's kind of the thing, they could, and they probably would, because that's most of the plot lines, or something related to hacking, for obvious reasons. They could probably take over a Hive world pretty damn easily. A Agri world, if it had a technological database controlling the machines, pretty damn easily. Because if they could integrate into it, if they could just add a single port where they can access it, they don't do that through ones and zeros. Ghost in the Shell accesses technology through Ghost, through direct spirit manipulation in many cases. There's more to it than that, but it's visualized as that, and there's a more spiritual aspect to it, which you don't really get. It's only ever really hinted at. You can drop in, and they would have a decided advantage. They could take over a Titan. I would say that their mind, because they are more adept at how to deal with foreign presences in a machine would give them an advantage over a Titan's AI or abominable intelligence or machine spirit. Take your pick. A Princeps is a human mind plugged in that can just work with a Titan, but they don't control it. They're co-piloting it with the AI. If a unaugmented human could do that, plug it in the machine and work with the spirit or control it enough that they can make a giant freaking war machine of death. At the smaller side, work. Yeah, I would say anyone from Ghost in the Shell who actually has experience doing just that against a hostile force with way more technological database and just understanding, I think they could easily make use of a Titan. Or anything involving machine spirit, which is most of the really big things that go boom. Yeah. So if they could infiltrate, they could find it. But they don't need to just do that. There's so many aspects. Every large technological source in 40K has a machine spirit, which is essentially an AI running it. Or an actual spirit. That actually could be a thing. So yeah, what would end up happening if Ghost in the Shell invaded? They could get in. They could take over a city. They could make sure people don't even know it got taken over because they just manipulate the information to hide where they need to hide, take what they need to take, and if someone caught on to them, they could hijack the defenses. If there's a Titan coming in, they could hijack a Titan because I would give them more interface ability at a faster level, quicker than anyone except the most connected of the Mechanicus could do, because that is literally everything Ghost in the Shell qualifies at. It is transcendent technology at this point to a comparison of the 40K universe at this point. There are a few stories and hints that technically at the height of technology in the golden age of technology, or the dark age as they call it in 40K, they could do exactly what Ghost in the Shell does, but better. 40K though has dropped to the point where no, they can't anymore. Now, how big of an effect Ghost in the Shell would have, I think they're just limited on people. There's only so many people on a single planet. If you just transfer the entire planet in, the entire population to a hive world, it still would only be a fraction of what the hive world is. When you have 9 billion people on our Earth right now, and there's probably a few more in the Ghost in the Shell universe, yeah, hive worlds are insane in their population. They're kind of dense. Let's go with that. That sounds nicer than, oh my god, why? Yeah. Essentially, they could take over a planet pretty easily. They might not even let anyone know it was taken over. Because when you control information and you can make people think things because, well, generally in 40K, most people are stupid by design. Because if you don't know to ask more, you don't know to ask why this rising tentacle monster is trying to eat me and try to worship it. What ends up happening is that Ghost in the Shell could integrate pretty seamlessly. They would quickly find out if they just do a basic information sweep that people like them, who are more on the cyber side, who more are pro-AI, who are almost considered AIs themselves at this point because they have metal brains, would not be well treated by most of the people, so they would need to go into hiding. They would need control. They would need to understand their situation. Asymmetrically, they don't need to fight someone head on. They could infiltrate. They could do everything that honestly makes the Gene Stealer cult so dangerous. They could adapt. They could move in. They could do what they need to do through sabotage, control, coercion, or just dropping the right information in the right place so people do what they need. Now, against any faction other than the Imperium, no, I think the difference negates all the advantages Ghost in the Shell would have. They wouldn't be able to do any kind of conflict, either direct or indirect, symmetrical or asymmetrical. It just doesn't work there. Like, you don't really infiltrate warg tech for the orcs. Wog tech, sorry. But against the Imperium, they would have a decided advantage. Based on their numbers, they wouldn't really change much, but they could easily take over a world. Multiple worlds, spacefaring colonies even. They could make a mark, but if they ever made too many changes, they would be noticed, which would be the the worst outcome for them, because they could do a lot. They can make things better. They can change things. And as long as they keep up the tithe, yeah, they're fine. But if they ever tried to break away, if they ever tried to stop giving to the black ships, if they ever tried to come out as being technologically savvy, Yeah, no, it would not go over well. 40K is not tolerant of things that remind them of previous apocalypses. That's basically the way to put it. Because it's mostly an entire civilization of people who have managed to survive through sheer dumb luck in many cases. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. They could easily make a large regional power. Sector-wide, maybe not that much, but definitely in a good portion of the galaxy, they could take over worlds, they could take over trade, they could take over shipping, and honestly, they would probably improve it for the benefit of the Imperium. If anything, it would probably do the Imperium good to be invaded by the people from Ghost in the Shell, because they would probably be better administrators. Even behind the scenes, even hiding, they would probably inadvertently make it better just because, you know, for their own safety, they don't want to live in a hell world. And they would probably have the control to do it. And considering the rampant corruption and stupidity, enforced stupidity of everyone, they would have massive advantages on tech, intelligence, access, resource. The only downside would be a straight up fight, and as long as they can avoid that, there's really no downside to them. It's a pretty good deal. Oddly enough, their biggest threat, aside from a flat out fight with any Xenos race that just doesn't comprehend or need to comprehend them, would be the Gene Stealer cults, because they would be working in a similar manner. That would be an interesting matchup, because while the Gene Stealers are more of a biological infection, anyone from 40K would be on the technological side and be able to see it, because they're not really as biological anymore. And that would be a great little bit of interest. But the entire thing is, both sides don't want to get noticed until they're ready. And in the, Ghost in the Shell side, they don't want to be ready. They don't want to be noticed ever. Where, when a Gene Stealer's noticed, it means there's a bunch of Tyranids on the way. So yeah, flat out fight, 40K wins. In a asymmetrical fight, Ghost in the Shell integrates, takes over, and might even be a regional power without anyone knowing it. So very damn successful, honestly. And yeah, again, if you guys have enjoyed this, don't forget to leave a like down below. Yeah, I know, I actually said like for myself for once. That's weird. I don't usually do that. It feels odd. I don't like doing it. Ugh, it feels dirty, actually. If there's anyone else you want me to try and look at how they would interact, how they would fight, I can English, how they would compare in a fight, and what would happen, just leave a comment down below. Tell me who I should look at. I have been asked to do a few others, and I definitely want to do more just because this is fun. These thought experiments are fascinating.
Hi, I know the video's wrapping up here, but hi, I got a recommendation. Doctor Who versus 40K. Let's see the Time Lord technology versus the 40K universe. And, of course, the Doctor is perhaps the greatest Time Lord of all time. So, might be a recommendation. Anyways, back to the video, wrapping it up. Bye.
Again, if there's anything you want me to do next for one of these matchups, let me know. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.